Hey MGTOWs, this is Vention. I just was watching a video from a YouTuber known as JSnip4, and he was pointing out this article about how two central banks have printed $1 billion out of nothing, and then they bought gold mining stocks with it. Man, that's theft. That is clear theft. These private central banks are owned by just the total richest people in the entire world, and then they just created. I mean, generally they have to have an asset and make loans to produce dollars, but man, they're just printing it out of nothing instead, and then they're just buying assets for it that they get for free. But if you and I want to buy a some shares in mining companies like what they bought here, we have to bust our ass for hours and hours just to get a share. and and the fact that they can create all this money out of nothing, it just dilutes the entire economy, and then basically they just basically buy it for something they create out of nothing, and that is so close to theft that there's really not much difference. So it's just wrong and disgusting and screwed up, and they know, the elites who own these banks, these central banks, like the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the Schiffs, those big, huge, rich people. Those people, the people like the people who held a $100,000 a plate fundraiser for freaking Hillary Clinton. Those people, just they're just like above the law. I mean, then Hillary, she turns around with all this illegal shit, and then she never gets prosecuted. She's like above the law. Um, it's it's just crazy, dudes. It's a symptom of our whole society. It's just breaking, right? When 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 basically when laws and when economic rules are set up to such an extent to manipulate the system so badly, eventually it will break. The system will break, and reality will assert itself, right? And so what they're doing here, though, they're planning for when this system breaks, and they're going to have something left, like in the central banks and these billionaires, these trillionaires. They're buying physical gold, not much physical silver, because even they don't have enough room to store physical silver. Although J.P. Morgan's buying a bunch, but basically they're getting out of their paper dollar bullshit, and they are buying physical assets, and they're just stealing because they can create that money out of nothing, and it's just stealing, and it's just disgusting. And their massive quantitative easing, their massive money printing has basically made money so cheap, like borrowed money, so cheap that people who used to make money or save money and try to keep up with inflation through interest rates in like savings accounts or bonds or whatever, they can't do that anymore. So all these pension funds, like I think CalPERS, they're basically like they're just losing money right and left. They're saying, oh, we should plan to get 7% interest, and they don't. They're lucky to get one. And now if people buy bonds, they're largely negative interest rates. They actually charge. I mean, you have to buy the bonds at such a level that the effective interest rate is less than zero, which is insane. So we've got to get out of the dollar. I mean, there's okay. There's a whole group of people who are fascinating, right? They really want to hack the system, and they have been able to largely. And those are a group of people who follow a book called Early Retirement Extreme. And what they do is they have methods of just throttling back your expenses to such an extent that it makes my rather frugal lifestyle look like really opulent. And they live in like little tiny apartments and just put away every single penny. And then if they do that for a number of years, then they can, invest it in, in interest bearing things like bonds. Yeah. and and then they were able to just, replace their whole income, and then they are retired in like 5 or 6 years. And that's an amazing thing. But the thing is, now they can't do that. They have to find some other way to generate income from their capital, because capital is so cheap now, because the banks are just creating it out of nothing, just by typing it into a computer and then just buying whatever they want. It's like they $1 billion, and they bought mining stocks, which are things that are like really, as precious metals go up, mining stocks are going up even more. And that's probably part of the reason why mining shares have gone up so well all over this last year. But the fact that people like early retirement extreme, they can't do what they did before. So in order to have any chance of just not being like totally thrown under the bus by these central banks, the only thing you can do is get outside of the dollar somehow, or the euro if you're in Europe, or whatever, and buy assets that are outside of the conventional economic system. Now, me, of course, every month, just today, in fact, when when I got paid, unfortunately, Bitcoins had this little spike this morning, and I ended up buying a Bitcoin like somewhere around here, and I paid like 630 or something. And then the price dropped down a little bit, so I was able to buy a second Bitcoin a bit cheaper, and then sweep them into my little Bitcoin wallet here. The cool thing about these modern HD Bitcoin wallets is whenever you get a new deposit, for example, like this one right here, you basically it generates an entirely new Bitcoin address, and then it the bit back in the day, the Bitcoin your Bitcoin totals would all just be added to one address, right? And it was extremely easy for like lawyers who are going after your money to track. Whereas now it's a whole lot harder, because every single thing, like when I got 0.008 Bitcoins recently, basically every time that happens, you generate a new Bitcoin address. And then as far as the totals go, they all just sort of aggregate together, and you get a single total, and it's sort of transparent to the user. So if I wanted to send $2,000 to something, it would probably take two of those Bitcoin addresses and send the money from there, but I would never know the difference, So basically, Bitcoins and silver, those are my two favorite assets. But there are other assets you can choose, like gold. You just won't get as big a bump, for example, in the 2000, I know you're probably tired of hearing this, but in the 2008 recession, I owned silver and gold, and the silver that I owned went up 260% between 2008 and 2011, and gold only went up 70%. And then, of course, when the recession bottomed out, and and then the precious metals basically started falling, once the conventional economy was in recovery, then silver lost that whole 260%, all the way down to like $15 an ounce again. Man, I feel for the people who were buying all the way down. And gold, it lost like 60% or something like that. So if you're at the bottom of a recession, like in 2019, we should bottom out. If you still want precious metals at that time, you're going to want to flip any of your silver that you own, flip it over into gold, and then you'll have to pay a transaction fee and whatever the coin shop charges for its fees, but you will lose less over the next 3 or 4 years if you're in gold rather than silver. So, but right now, silver, I think that's the way to go. It dropped down a little bit. It's slightly below $20 an ounce now. But back in 2015, I backed the truck up and replaced all the silver that I spent on the down payment of this house in just a few months. It was so cheap. So, yeah, good times. Another thing, what's happening right now is they're taking advantage of the framework of the economy and the legal system, and they're using it to just harvest whatever they can, increasing their personal wealth and power as much as they can before the system drops. And they have plans to roll out a new system for us when the system breaks, right? And it looks like they've been planning this shit for a long time, but that's getting into conspiracy theory, and some people aren't ready for that. But basically, when they abuse the system to such an extent, it's a natural thing to happen that people will stop valuing the system and stop supporting the system. And one of those systems is the legal system, right? Because look at what happened with like Hillary, right? she does all this outrageous, over-the-top criminality that anybody in the world would get prosecuted for, and yet the FBI does not file charges, right? Whereas the Green Party candidate lady, she spray painted the blade of a bulldozer that was bulldozing something, and then if that bulldozer is used, I mean, the moment the dirt hits it, within a minute or two, that spray paint's gone, and yet the legal people in that county have filed an arrest warrant for her for vandalism, right? So you can tell. Whereas Hillary Clinton, man, they have the horrible Clinton Foundation scams, and the money that's missing, and that whole thing where they took donations for the earthquake in Haiti and nothing went there, and and then Hillary was running the whole State Department like an extension of the Hillary Clinton Foundation. So anybody who paid enough to the foundation would get the ability to speak to her or something like that. And Trump's guilty of that shit too. I think he made some kind of big $200,000 donation to somebody's reelection fund, and then a suit against Trump University was dropped. It's kind of suspicious, but nothing like freaking Hillary. But these elites, they abuse the system, and they are above the law, and the time starts rolling around when the people start seeing these flagrant abuses, and then they start thinking, well, the law doesn't apply to them, so morality may still exist, like my own personal code of honor still exists, but as far as following the letter of the law, that is a different thing from my own personal value system, my own personal morality, right? If there's a situation where I could profit from breaking the law that doesn't hurt anybody, um, and the chances of getting caught are just about zero, you know, I don't think I have a great deal of, I don't think I would feel embarrassed or ashamed at all for breaking the law, which is like a revelation for me. Because all my life I've been kind of one of those guys who's, that is the law, you know, it is the law, you follow the law, you know, that's how society stays together, right? But the elites are flagrantly throwing the law and violating the law, and then using the law to punish the little guys. uh, and they are doing it flagrantly, and they're totally immune to the law, so the law really doesn't have any moral standing anymore, right? Uh, so if there's a situation where where there's nobody around and there's a red light, you know, if it's critical or something, you know, I might go right through that light. You know, it's a cost benefit analysis. You know, it's a system. The system is breaking, and there are situations where you might not want to follow the law, and it's like a shocker to me. Um, there are other systems which are in place that break when they push it too much, right? For example, there's like flagrant violation of the law going on by the big banks, the big central banks, like um, Deutsche Bank. They recently settled some kind of lawsuit where they were violating the, like, manipulating the price of gold and silver, and then they admitted it and then agreed to testify against other banks, and then and basically, I mean, it's like proof, it's right out there, you know, that they're doing this, and they're still doing it. And so but like what happened like in 2010, I think, right around then, um, the the demand for physical silver, because people were seeing this Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and MF Global, you know, all these exchanges collapsing right after another, one after another, and they wanted physical silver, darn it, and physical gold, and they were buying it physically, and it was getting to the point where premiums were being added to the electronic price that were way out of reality. And what that was happening, or what was happening, it was a breakaway um, between the electronic banker price that they set for their fictitious, like 260 to 1 electronic fictitious silver that they sell, and the actual real price for real silver. That those two systems were just about ready to snap, man, and then the physical market would have been totally separate from the electronic market, and it would have caused a run on the electronic price, and it would have crashed to like $2 or less, whereas the physical silver price, it would have gone way up. But instead, the bankers were smart, and they allowed the electronic price to go up to like $48 an ounce before the conventional economy started recovering visibly, and then people were moving money out of silver, and then they were able to manipulate the price back down again, right? So when a system of control, you know, their electronic silver price or the legal system becomes so arduous and so unfair that people see it, then people will start failing to comply, right? And that is kind of a dangerous thing for a society, because then the systems which maintain the society, the whole country, begin to break, and people stop playing the game and stop cooperating the way they traditionally did. MGTOW, hello. And then they just, and then the whole system starts coming down, right? Um, and another example of that is, of course, our own decision not to get married, or not to avoid marriage, and don't give a woman a kid, and don't move in with a woman. Those systems, those things that we have traditionally uh, contributed to the world, we create families, and we nurture them along, and rate and pay into the system the taxes and everything, um, and then the kids grow up and become productive citizens and everything, and but the elites and the CIA and all that have pushed that feminism, and of course Gloria Steinem, many MGTOWs are aware she was a CIA operative, and the CIA backed Miss Magazine, and people call that conspiracy theory, but it's on the record, and basically the result is, when they have made things so totally, so brutally unfair, that men have are like millions, one by one, millions every year, they are opting out of marriage. They're just saying, no, I'm not doing it. And the gifts that we have to give, and the productivity and the power that we would be able to provide to society, that gift is not given. And the economy is slowing down, and everything is grinding to a halt, and women are all pissy and unhappy. Wah, wah. But the gifts that we have to give will never be given, right? So that's just part of the whole gigantic collapse, right? But could be worse. So was there anything else I wanted to recover? Cover. Yeah. The legal system breaking. People's morality is now breaking away from the letter of the law, and people's money. we're on the cusp. We're on the cutting edge of this. Those of us who have gotten into silver and bitcoins and all that, we are the cutting edge, because in fairly soon, we're going to see like just regular people getting into this. And I've done everything I could at work and amongst my friends and subscribers to get people into, or at least examining what the conventional economy is doing to us, and how these bankers are just stealing just crazy, insane amounts of money, and it's devaluing our own opportunities to save money. So early retirement extreme doesn't work anymore. You have to find something else to invest in. You sure as heck can't do it with bonds now. But and then, of course, MGTOW is yet another one. And, of course, the gold and silver fix, the price fixing that they are that they're doing, when enough people want gold and silver, and we're gonna see some big brokerage failures, and maybe Deutsche Bank of Germany will collapse. And when that occurs, there's going to be a flood of money going into precious metals and bitcoins. So those of us who are, poised in those positions, we should enjoy a handsome profit. And it's a terrible thing, really, to be in a society that has chosen to die like this. But it's not like we've chosen to die as a society. People have gotten in charge, and their efforts to take over and control the world, and their efforts to do the same in the U.S., have just ripped the freaking heart out of the country. And now we're like geriatric and weak and tired, and we can't do anything, and it's a nasty, horrid thing that they've done. But we can still have some good lives and still have decent lives and have a fairly good experience on the world while we're here. Um, but we're going to have to be aware because, man, everything's coming to pieces. So we're going to have to form systems to and take advantage of the systems that are growing, because there are other alternatives such as bitcoins and these dark markets, to do business totally outside of the conventional economic system. And as things develop, those things will start getting more and more prominent. So yeah. Okay, guys, that's about all I got for you. So if you're not into bitcoins yet, man, I would really consider doing it. And oh yeah, don't get married.